I want to thank Chairman Miller for the opportunity to testify before the committee this morning. I also want to thank United Mine Workers of America for its assistance and generous support of our appearance before you. In addition to those testifying today and the other family members sitting at this table, there are many more family members from the Crandall Canyon mine disaster who are here today. Some of them also have prepared written statements, Chairman Miller. On behalf of our delegation, I ask that you accept all of our written statements for the record.
Thank you. We will. No objection.
I've been a union miner since 1978. I was 24 years old when I started at the Wilburg mine just outside of Orangeville. I had never been underground before and did not care for it for quite a while. In fact, I told myself and my family members that I was only going to be in the mining industry for about a year, and then I would move on to other things. But when I was allowed to get into the section work of the mine and to do different jobs, and the more I learned and the more I became friends with my coworkers, my attitude began to change. I became addicted. Coal mining got into my blood. I became a fire boss and then a miner operator. It was then that I became acquainted with MSHA. I did not like MSHA telling me what I could and could not do, and I got frustrated with the oversight. I guess you could say we butted heads. Then the Wilburg mine disaster happened in December of 1984, and it was a drastic changing point in my life as a coal miner. After the fire at Wilburg, during the recovery work, I learned so much about the safety aspects of mining and the do's and the don'ts. I realized what an important role MSHA can play in the safety and protection of miners and the coal mine in general. I learned to appreciate and to appreciate the expertise of MSHA. In 1993, Pacific Corps bought the Trail Mountain Mine. I was among the first few men to go rehabilitate that mine. The Trail Mountain Mine was previously a non-unionized operation. As I entered the mine for the first time, I was stunned at the difference between the non-union mine and the unionized Wilburg mine. I was shocked and disappointed with both MSHA and the previous owners at the terrible safety conditions that was permitted to exist without the oversight and protection of the United Mine Workers of America. At the Crandall Canyon mine, had the mine operator been responsible and held accountable by the United Mine Workers and by MSHA, my brother would not have died. So much of the coal had been mined that all that was left was coal meant to hold the mountain up. If the UMWA had been there, the pillars and barriers would not have been mined, as the miners who were concerned about the mountain coming down would have had a voice. A unionized mine would have allowed a safety withdrawal. This to be called had union miners felt that something was not safe. The miners would have had the UMWA to back them up had the miners felt that someone was going to get hurt or killed. This lack of responsibility by the companies and lack of oversight by MSHA, coupled with the no protection by the UMWA, has led to my family's being devastated. Our lives are changed forever. My brother Kerry's wife is having a very hard time and will for some time to come. Her kids and I are trying to be strong for her. That's all we can do. We all know that only God can provide her the comfort she needs for the loss of her husband. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here and to testify.
Mr. Roscoe.
I want to thank Chairman Miller for the opportunity to testify. I also want to thank the United Mine Workers of America for making it possible to be here. My father-in-law, Kerry Allred, was a coal miner. He was a great father, husband, brother, and son, and grandfather. He was loved by everyone and well known. We miss you, Dad. I want everyone to know that we are very thankful for the thoughts and prayers and for the rescue efforts. You are all our heroes. I want to focus my comments on how the families were treated after the collapse by both the companies and by MSHA. The past 2 months have been like a roller coaster for all of us. From day one, we have been let down by Mr. Murray and by MSHA. Mr. Murray told us immediately after the collapse that we could trust God and in Him, and He would stop at nothing to find our loved ones, dead or alive. Every day went by where we were thinking maybe today, but we were just continually got let down. Mr. Murray appears to have lost interest. Sealing the mine is not now being discussed, and the families are trying to stop that process. We think that the families need closure. The manner in which Murray and MSHA dealt with us for the first 2 weeks after the collapse was unbelievable. They just told us what we wanted to hear and not the facts. All we heard was earthquake, earthquake. We did not want to hear about earthquakes, but wanted to know when we were going to see our loved ones again. Murray more than once yelled at us when we asked questions. For the families that are Hispanic, there was no translator for the first 2 days, so it was extremely upsetting for them. Questions were asked, and the responses were always, that question has already been asked, or we are looking into it. I feel that we are not treated with respect we should have been given. Finally, we made suggestions to help the rescue efforts, and were just amazed at how quick both Murray and MSHA were to say no. To all of our suggestions, these are just a few examples of how poorly we were treated, but time is short. We all have tragedies in our lives, but this one that should have not happened, happened. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here to talk to you, and may God bless all miners and their families.
Thank you. Mr. Sanchez.
I want to thank Chairman Miller for the opportunity and to testify and give life to memory of my brother, Manny Sanchez, or as I call him, Manny. I also want to thank the United Mine Workers of America for its generosity and making it possible for us to be here. As a family, we have many questions. We want to know how the mine owner got a permit to do this kind of mining. We want to know how MSHA put a rubber stamp on the mining plans submitted by the mine owner. We want to know how often this mine got inspected by MSHA, especially because there was more than one complaint made by miners about bumps and other adversities. The company ignored these complaints. When he died, my brother had been a miner for 17 years. He was concerned about safety and asked for a meeting. The meeting never took place. Many said the mine safety was not right. My brother was concerned about safety at the mine, and he had asked me to get him a job at the mine that I was working at in Wyoming. The Sunday, Monday shift, was his last scheduled working day for him. Unfortunately, it did not leave soon enough. I worked for this company 10 months ago. The company's goal was production over safety. With this company, the number one goal is cut coal and mine out the longwall production at the West Ridge mine. When you get people that all they care it's production and competition and worry about safety later, the results we have been devastating. It was very hard to learn that after the tragedy happened, one of the old mine supervisors said in a meeting that he had told them not to cut the barriers out. As families, we want the truth of what happened. MSHA said that the company is thinking about sealing this part of the mine. We feel like this is not being investigated at all. It appears that MSHA and Murray worked together on this, both the mining and the rescue. Someone needed to look over after our interest, but before the collapse, which would have prevented it, and after that collapse, to assure everything possible was being done to rescue, now to assure everything is possible and it's being done to find my brother and the other miners. It is very frustrating to know, now to learn that MSHA has prevented the United Mine Workers of America from participating in this investigation. Someone needs to represent us, the victims. My brother and I were really good friends. He gave me a hard time, and I gave it right back to him. Unfortunately, he's not here. Thank you again for letting us be here.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips. Engage.
if I can get through this. First of all, I'd like to thank the chairman, Miller, and the committee for inviting us to speak of my son and my grandson, Gage. I wish to thank the United Mine Workers for the generous assistance for making this possible for us to be here. I want to speak how much we miss Brandon and how we don't want anybody else to this happen to. We'd like to make the mine safer. It's just hard to have hope and have your heart broke every day. And to watch your grandson grow up without a dad. It's just... And I'd like to talk a little bit about Mr. Murray. I didn't go to very many of the meetings because I couldn't stand to listen to the man. So he was talking about one day when they was moving the drill holes, and they had the pad ready for one, and then they decided to drill it somewhere else. And I asked him why there wasn't two going, and he said the mountain couldn't support two drills going at one time. This is a mountain. You know, there's timing. They can time it for water and fuel and stuff. So, and he said something else. I don't know what it was. And he said, we could drill you 1,000 holes. It wouldn't make any difference. They would find him, wouldn't they, if they drilled at least 1,000? I just miss him, and I want him to, I don't know. I would like to know where my son is in that hole, so I can leave a marker on the mountain. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know how tough this is for you and for Gage. Ms. Black.
Hello, my name is Wendy Black, and I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. First, I'd like to tell you a few things about my husband, Dale Black. He was a terrific father. He had two beautiful children, Ashley, 22, and Corey, 17. Dale loved to four-wheeler ride. He liked to boat and hunt and fish and spend valuable time with his family and friends. Dale Berg Black was killed on August 16, 2007, at the Crandall Canyon mine while trying to rescue the 6 trapped miners, Brandon Phillips, Don Erickson, Manning Sanchez, Luis Hernandez, Carlos Peon, and Kerry Allred. Dale had 24 years of experience in the mine. 20 of those years was spent at Genwell. He started at Genwell in March of 1984. That's when Genwell was just reopening. He learned to run every piece of equipment in that mine, including the roof folder and the miner. Dale became production boss in 1993, and he also had 2 years as a longwall supervisor. 3.5 of those years of his experience was spent at Westridge, where he helped portal in 3 portals and develop new sections and mains. He willingly went back to Genwell because of the H2S, which is hydrogen sulfide, that they had at Westridge. He went to Genwell as a section foreman. All the men loved working with Dale. They always told me so. I have never known my husband to be afraid to go to work, but the last part of his life he was. He actually told me he was and why on August 5th. While we were getting ready to go to bed, he said that they'd been hitting the Richter scale at work, and I asked him what he meant by this, and he said that they were having big enough bounces at the mine that they were registering on the Richter scale. So I feel in my heart that he was worried enough about this that he was letting me know what was going on. This was the night before the initial collapse. He also said that the crew members had been discussing the bounces and they were worried also. On August 6th, Dale had went to work for his last day shift before his days off. When he drove up to the mine, he met a cop at the entrance. That's how he found out about the mine collapse. Right away, he was helping to get those men out. I found out around 8 a.m. That something had happened at Genwell, and I instantly called the mine conspect, and they assured me that Dale was all right. I didn't hear from him again until 10 p.m. when he arrived home. I was so relieved to see him and that he was okay, just really tired and worried about how they were going to get those men out of there. Every morning from then on, Dell was up and ready to leave at 4:15 a.m. Dell and Petey rode to work together every day of the rescue because there were so many people up there trying to help. I never knew when Dell would get home from the rescue, sometimes 8 p.m., sometimes 10. I was just glad when he came home. For the entire rescue, he would get between 4 and 5 hours of sleep before he was back up there at the mine trying to help in any way. I know how hard it was for all those rescue crews to continue to work in there every day, knowing what they knew as experienced miners. Still, they never gave up hope. On Sunday, August 12th, I sat up with Dell because he couldn't sleep. There was a meteor shower that night, so we sat outside, and he began to cry, and he told me a lot of things that had been happening at the mine. For instance, how mine manager Gary Peacock came up to Dell and says, "You know I will be taking this to my grave." Gary knows that I know what he had said to Dell, because a day or two after Dell died, I told him that I knew this, and I told him I guess it was Dell that had taken what he had done to the grave. His expression was stunned silence. On another instance, on August 5th, on day shift before the initial collapse, Dell was trying to have his miner operator pull back when shift foreman Jesse Gordon came up and asked Dell, "What are you doing?" Dell said he told him it was too risky and he was pulling out. Gordon told Dell, "You can't leave all that coal. Hit it harder on the bottom." Dell said he wished he would have yelled and argued louder, pushed his point. He wanted them to move out further to Section 121, but he was not being heard. I feel this has something to do with the initial collapse on August 6th, but he did what he was told to do. On the last day of Dell's life, August 16th, he didn't take his lunch bucket to work with him, which he did every day, even during all of this. And it was also the only day of the rescue he drove by himself. Why? I have so many unanswered questions about the rescue, like who was in charge of it at the time of the rescue? Who approved of this mining plan, and who was to oversee this plan and that it was being followed correctly? And who in their right mind would send rescuers underground while the mine was still bouncing, then drill from the top when they had no idea what this would do to the stability of the mine while the miners were underground mining? I would like to know how a cage is an imminent danger or a closure order be modified 15 times as they proceeded to the mine. To my understanding from fellow workers, the plan was that only the minimum amount of workers would be in there while the miner was running. When finally they got the miner up and ready to go, Bob Murray and the media came in. The underground MSHA worker, Mike Shumway, told the operator not to start the miner until the plan was being followed. And another MSHA worker, Ted Farmer, overrode this plan and told them to proceed. My husband felt that he had to be there because of these trapped miners. They were his friends, all of them, and family in a way. Dell was always first man in, last man out. He had told me about the letters and the pictures that the families had put up at the mine. The one he remembered the most said, "Please bring my daddy home." This gave Dell the courage and determination to go back into that hellhole. I want to know if there are rules and regulations made to protect the miners, then who is to be accountable to make sure these rules and regulations are being followed? Please at least have one person with enough backbone to say no more. MSHA has one job, mine safety and health administration. It would have taken just one MSHA official or one official from the company doing his job to have saved my husband's life. Which one of them wasn't doing their job? Now explain something to me. How do you truthfully investigate yourself? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, our thanks and appreciation to all of the members of the families who are here and to those of you who testified. If I might just ask a couple of questions. Ms. Marasco, you raised the issue that we've heard about, certainly read about in the press, and that's the question of how communications were developed from either government officials or the company to members of the family and even to members of the rescue teams. Could you elaborate on those?
First of all, we had from day one we had a couple of meetings. First in the morning, then in the afternoon. And the way we feel that how it should have been taken taken was when M. Shaw stepped in, we thought M. Shaw was going to be in charge. But every time we got down there, we had Mr. Murray and Mr. Moore always there, and they would be always representing what we did not want to hear. We felt like M. Shaw should have been there more instead of what we were hearing from Mr. Murray and Mr. Moore. I'd like to see efforts to communicate openly and honestly with the families from the very beginning of any tragedy like this. The families deserve to be told the truth and to be able to count on the information that is given to be accurate. A way of regularly contacting the families, updating them, and keeping them in the loop is essential to the families feeling informed and cared about.
Those concerns have been raised from a number of fronts, and I just want to let you know that that's one of our concerns too. Is at what point MSHA is supposed to take over the communications with the public and to provide some sort of an impartial in between families and the mining operation, the rescue operation. So we've had this problem tragically at other mine disasters, and so it appears that something has to be restated about how that is conducted, because we all appreciate the difficulty and the urgency and the adrenaline after a mine accident, but there has to be some arbiter of what's accurate and not accurate, so we can convey the best information to the families. Ms. Black, you mentioned that your husband was operating the miner, which was not really within his responsibility. Why was he doing that? I'm sorry, you're going to.
It was too dangerous at the time, and he didn't want to give that responsibility to someone else. He actually didn't have to be right there, but he didn't want to.
This is during the rescue
Yes, he didn't.
effort.
Actually, on the Tuesday that they'd given him the day off, he had went back up there, and the miner operator that was supposed to be running the miner couldn't do it because he was too scared. So my husband went in on a day off just to run the miner because there wasn't anybody that would do it.
So another worker felt the safety issue was such that he
Yes,
did not want it.
Dale didn't want that responsibility to someone else. He took it upon himself to do it. So that's why.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips, how's Gage doing?
Okay.
Gage, I told you I was going to ask you a question, Gage. So you're on TV now, so you can do whatever you want, you know. Gage, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Sorry about your pop.